Hi, Delene. How are you?
I'm good, Leanne. How are you?
Yeah, going very well. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. Thanks for being here with us today. Now, guys, we're really lucky to have the president of the Real Estate Institute of New South Wales and also the managing director of our Leanne Corporation here with us today, Leanne Pilkington. Leanne, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, I'm sure COVID has made you very, very busy. I mean, you were busy before. This is a higher level of busyness. Talk to me about what's been going on the last couple of years.
It has been an absolutely crazy month, that is for sure. I had to cancel a dozen trips. I had 12 business trips that I cancelled on the 23rd of March because obviously all this was happening. As you can see, I'm at home. The entire team are working from home at the moment. So it's quite a transition, and I'm literally on Zoom calls all day, pretty much every day. And it's been good. Because we at the Real Estate Institute have got a direct line into government. And so when agents like yourself have got questions around what these restrictions actually mean, we're able to get the info directly from government and then get it out to everybody, so we all are very clear on what the rules are. Because typically what we see in the media are these sort of high-level global statements, and you and I both know there's a lot of detail that we then have to try and understand to make sure we're doing everything properly.
No, and it's true. And the great thing is that we're getting updates in real time as well, because these are, obviously we've got to, part of our day is following up buyers, vendors, listings, selling. Added to top of that is giving them information in real time, is what happens with tenants and what happens with opens and what's happening with auctions. And so, it's a constant update that you guys are thankfully providing us in the Real Estate Institute.
And every day is different, right?
Every day is different.
So we think we've got the information today, and that's awesome. But then something else comes out tonight, and we're like, oh God, okay, now we've got to update everybody again. So you've got to make sure that you're looking at the most up-to-date information every single day.
The paradigm is constantly shifting. I wanted to get your rundown on the last few months, actually. What's it been like for you? Obviously, we know the cancellation of the trips, but the constant line into the government, and what's the decision-making process with these guys? We've been doing a great job, by the way, but just it's basically we're hopping from one to another and shifting and pivoting. Obviously the open for inspection ban was made, I think 5-6 weeks ago, auctions as well. What's been the thought process with lifting that so quickly, actually?
Well, I really think that there's been an understanding in government just how important the real estate industry is to the economy around the country, but certainly in particular in New South Wales. And it's not just agents being able to sell property again. Every listing has so many different businesses that it impacts. So you've got conveyancers, you've got strata searchers, you've got pest and building searchers, you've got stylists and photographers, and the list goes on and on and on. And then when you actually complete a transaction, you've got removalists and you've got white goods and furniture. Like it is massive. And I think that this time with certainly in Sydney, there's been a 79% decline in transactions in the month of April. And that is just reverberating around the economy. And I think that the government has realised that the best way to get the economy moving again is to get the real estate market moving again.
It's interesting though, because we didn't have any forewarning of this, unless I'm missing something. This kind of felt like it just happened overnight with the, okay, we're just lifting the restrictions on. They didn't even say with the open houses, oh, well, we will allow you to have 2 people in like they did with the house visits. It's just like, okay, you guys are good to go. Just follow the restrictions in terms of social distancing. So it wasn't even a drip feed. It was quite immediate.
Yeah, it was, but it did come off the back of, I know, absolutely, we're very thankful for it, but it did come off the back of Western Australia, Northern Territory and Queensland doing the same thing. So I wasn't that surprised about it. I kind of thought it might be coming in the next week. But I think that it's really important that we all understand that this can be taken away from us as quickly as it's been given back. And so we need to be very, very mindful of the way that we behave in the open, at the open for inspections. And I am suggesting to everybody that we have the open time, but we get people to pre-register for a certain part of that, you know, even if it's just 10-minute intervals, depending on the size of the house, obviously. Yes. But if you just say, okay, I'm going to be at the property at 10:15 and pre-register, so agents like yourself can actually manage the people coming through. We need to be very, very careful. Likewise with auctions, what we are suggesting is that you only have registered bidders at the auctions, the agents, and of course the homeowners as well. So we just really need, even though the government hasn't outlined those instructions, we think that it's the best thing for all of us to do.
Of course, we want to keep it on rolling. We want to keep the auctions going, and we want to keep the auctions going as well. Talk to me about those auctions, though. There was discussions about the auctions only being outside. Is it okay to have them in rooms, providing that we have the social distancing laws adhered to? Like, what are the parameters?
Yeah, let's hope it doesn't rain, right?
Well, we do a lot of in rooms.
Yes, I know. And you know what? I don't specifically have the answer for you yet on in rooms auctions. I'm hopeful that that we will be able to do them, assuming that all of the social distancing protocols are in place. But I do need to just get a sign off from Fair Trading, which I expect I will have in a couple of days. Okay.
I remember we had actually the first auction in New South Wales post-COVID announcement. On the Monday night after the announcement on the Sunday, and we had that in rooms, and what we obviously made sure were that, you know, all the seats were appropriately separated from each other, and, you know, everybody followed those guidelines superbly. I think one thing, going back to the open house, as you said, you know, we've obviously got to have hand sanitizer there. If we've got a small apartment, 2-bedroom apartment, you're going to have 2 people in at a time rather than 6 or whatever. So just a bit of common sense around that will keep all the guns blazing. A couple of things that I wanted to ask you, and this was something you brought up last week: stamp duty.
Yes.
Please talk to us more about that.
Well, we know that the Treasurer has come out and said that they believe stamp duty is a barrier to purchasing property, which is something we've been saying for a really long time. But to think that the stamp duty is going to disappear without something else replacing it, I think is
wishful
completely
thinking.
Unrealistic. So what that looks like yet, I just don't know yet. But I think
they've been talking about it for a while, though, haven't they?
Well, the Real Estate Institute have been talking to government about it for a really long time, but this is the first time that I've seen the government show a willingness to do something about stamp duty. But what they do, I don't think it's going to be just no more stamp duty and happy days. I think they will have to make some significant changes to the way we're taxed. So
we shouldn't rip out the party balloons just yet?
I don't think so, no.
Bad. Okay, let's talk about the tenants.
Yes.
We had a lot of inquiries from landlords, tenants with COVID. Do I pay my rent? Do I have to pay my rent? Can I just throw a number out to the agent because I'm pleading, problems with paying the rent? I understand that. So what are the parameters? You came out and you talked about the obligation from tenants to pay their rent. So talk me through that in terms of, as a tenant, if you're experiencing difficulty, but I'm getting a lot of calls from my owners, like, what do I do if a tenant refuses to pay their rent? I'm getting $1,600 a week and my tenant offers $600 a week, for example. What are the parameters? Am I just having to accept that because they're experiencing hardship? What does that look like for me?
Yeah, it's interesting because the government hasn't really given us the parameters around the negotiation with residential tenants in the same way that they have from a commercial perspective. So unfortunately, Scott Morrison thought he was doing the right thing, saying we won't evict you for the next 6 months, but what tenants heard was you don't have to pay rent for the next 6 months. And that's absolutely not the case. And so if you are...
Selective hearing, maybe?
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And so there is absolutely an obligation to pay rent, but there's also an obligation on the landlords to negotiate in good faith. And so what we're saying to tenants is you need to demonstrate that there has been, that you are COVID impacted. And the definition of COVID impacted is that the household income, once you take into consideration any government assistance, so job keeper, for example, that the household income has been diminished by 25% or more. If you can demonstrate that, then the landlord's being asked to negotiate in good faith. The landlord can choose to defer rent and ask people to pay rent later. Obviously, a lot of tenants are not happy with that. They want to see that waived. There's no obligation for the landlord to waive it, but that you may well decide that that's in the best interest. It's all part of the negotiation. Right. If you can't get to a position, because we know a lot of landlords have been impacted as well, right? They've lost their jobs and so forth. If you can't reach a negotiation, then fair trading will get involved and help. Their mediators will help negotiate. We've had a few tenants come back and say, well, if the landlord won't negotiate, I want to see the landlord's financial position. So tell me about that. The tenants don't have the right to be having a look at the landlord's financial position. However, fair trading will, if the landlord's saying, no, I can't afford to negotiate, the fair trading mediators will ask you to demonstrate why. Just like the tenants have will have to demonstrate their hardship, the landlord will have to demonstrate it as well. Yeah.
So how immediate is that? I mean, these things happen in real time. We were told that NCAT is not operational, or they're not having hearings. So how
they're doing phone hearings at NCAT, and so if so the next step is if fair trading can't negotiate a rent reduction with the landlord, it will go to NCAT. And NCAT will then make the decisions. And that's a bit of a wild card for us. We don't really know how any of those rulings will go with NCAT because none of them have happened yet. So we don't have any
trading, we have a problem with the tenant, for example. We can't come to an agreement with the tenant. So our property manager will just say, Department of Fair Trading, we need to have a hearing. This is an urgent matter. And I'm sure they've got a lot of people on standby for those kind of hearings.
Yeah, they do. They've got they are mediating, and they're not finding it overwhelming numbers at the moment. So my understanding is that it is going along okay. Most landlords and tenants and agents are able to negotiate the process themselves, but there will always be the ones that are just a little bit, more tricky than others.
So if the landlord doesn't necessarily, just because they take a hit in the rent, the tenant does not have to agree to pay that rent at the end of the lease or have it deferred, as you say. It has to become an agreement. It's not a mandated.
That's right. It's a negotiation.
It's a negotiation. Okay. Talk to me about the land tax for COVID-affected landlords.
So if you are provide that assistance back to the tenant, you can, it's a 25% decrease in your land tax. But only 16% of landlords in New South Wales pay land tax.
Right, I saw that. That's interesting, isn't it?
So 84%, that doesn't help. And so what's happening right now is Parliament has been recalled for May 12, which is next week. Other states have offered rent relief packages, and we believe that there's the opposition are going to try and negotiate something like that with the New South Wales government. Very strict rules around in the other states. There's very strict rules around how the money is provided and to whom. It's got to be a so I probably shouldn't say too much because I don't know what it's going to look like in New South Wales, right? But so we can certainly update you next week. Yeah, May the 12th. Yeah.
So when the Parliament meets, May the 12th, do you, as the president of the Real Estate Institute of New South Wales, do you get a direct update directly after that? Or what are the lines of communication in terms of us keeping our owners updated?
Yes, absolutely. We will get an update almost in real time.
Okay.
Yeah, where the government have been very forthcoming in providing information as soon as it comes to hand.
That's great.
Yeah.
I mean, the information is sort of quite constant, so it's good to get real-time updates.
Yeah.
One more question, I guess. A number of landlords asked me about this. They want to sell their property. They're in a bit of a pickle. Tenant doesn't want to give access because of COVID. What are their rights in terms of selling?
So landlords have still got the right to sell their property and to enter tenancy for that reason. So those things have not changed. Certainly challenging when some people will say, absolutely not, you're not getting access. And so again, it really is a negotiation, unfortunately.
Is it still prevalent that we can't evict anyone in the 6 months? That was what Scott Morrison did say from memory. So a landlord wants to sell the property, the tenant doesn't want to give access. The landlord actually can't evict the tenant because of
they can't evict a tenant for non-payment of rent. So there are still ways, in theory, you can still get people out of the tenants out of the property if it's being sold. But again, you've got to go through that process, and how easy it will be to go through with NCAT, I just don't have any answers in that space.
Best to try to negotiate if we can, right?
Correct, absolutely.
We had one recently where we followed the guidelines. Initially, the tenant wouldn't give us access, and we followed the guidelines in terms of the 14-day notice. And we also insisted that people wear masks and gloves when they were at the inspection to give the tenant comfort. So that did help us navigate through an otherwise tricky situation, because obviously safety of the tenants and their family, safety of the buyers, our safety as well, we've all got to take consideration. We don't want to be cowboys, do we?
No, absolutely.
Do you have any tips on going forward, how we navigate all of this? Do you see this staying in place for a while if we all behave ourselves and follow the guidelines? Are there anything else that's going to come out that we need to prepare ourselves for?
No, look, I sure hope not. I just really want to encourage everybody to play by the rules, because if we do play by the rules, then we can get the economy restarted, and everybody hopefully will get back to work and all of those good things. So things will only change if we don't behave ourselves and handle this in the way that the government's asking us to. So. Yeah.
Are they asking you for weekly updates in terms of what you're seeing, or just to make sure we're all on track, or they're monitoring it themselves?
Well, I would think it's very fair to assume that there will be plenty of people out in the field on Saturday checking how this is working. And we are on update calls with government a few times a week.
So be on high alert, people.
Correct.
Saying be on high alert.
Absolutely.
And take normal steps. So the takeaways I've got it is open for inspections, great. Auctions, great. Adhere to social distancing rules. Don't have too many people in your opens. Get them to make appointments so you can spread them out. Maybe have longer open for inspections so you can spread them out comfortably. Hand sanitizer on site. If people we didn't touch on this, but I suppose, if people are unwell, you ask them not to attend.
Don't come. Absolutely, don't come.
Don't come.
Yeah.
Is there anything else I've missed out on?
I don't think so. It all sounds good.
Amazing, Leanne. Thank you for being so proactive with all the updates as well. You're amazing. And I bet you didn't think you'd be signing on for this when you became the president.
No, certainly an interesting time to be president. There's no doubt about that. All right. Lovely to see you.
See you later.
Bye.